I'd like to welcome everybody to the 2017 National Healthy Homes Month webinar series. National Healthy Homes Month offers an opportunity to learn more about housing and its impact on the health and provide resources to encourage local activities, as well as empower families to protect themselves from hazards in their home. This June's outreach activities aim to greatly boost awareness and understanding of what federal and local resources are available to make a difference in the lives of all residents, regardless of where they live. For more information about National Healthy Homes Month, including resources for your program, you can visit www.hud.gov/healthyhomes. Today's webinar is Restoring for Healthy Homes After a Natural Disaster, presented by Dr. Claudette Reichel from Louisiana State University and Louisiana Cooperative Extension. We are pleased that you have joined us for this event. This webinar series is sponsored by the HUD Office of Lead Hazard Control and Healthy Homes, USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and the National Healthy Homes Partnership. This webinar will last approximately 1 hour with 15 minutes at the end for questions. At the end of the webinar, you will be given information on links to additional resources for your program. We will be recording this webinar and posting it for your viewing later if you prefer. Finally, we ask that you mute your microphone during the presentation. You may unmute your microphone for questions at the end. If you have questions before then, please feel free to post them in the chat window. So it's my pleasure to turn it over to Dr. Claudette Reichel of Louisiana State University.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that, and I am delighted to have been invited to present this webinar today. And I was really asked, and what I'm going to do is kind of a dual thing. I was asked to provide kind of a tour of a really unique center and a demonstration project that we have, but also at the same time do so in the vein of what we've had to do a lot of is do some education on restoring for healthy homes after a natural disaster and how we've utilized La House to do that. So I really kind of, expanded on the title of this webinar, and in that vein, what this is really going to be about and what La House is about building solution fusion. And this tour will show you how we have blended the benefits that people seek and that people want at our La House Resource Center. La House is short for Louisiana House, and use that to address both the restoration after natural disasters and the other benefits that we seek. Fusion, we see it everywhere in our culture today. What that means is the blending of things that used to be separate into something altogether new and better that's combined into something else. We do it with fashion, with food, with music, with art. But when it comes to housing and the programs that relate to housing and the research that goes into it and whatever is facilitated, often at our government and agency level, it's kind of been in silos. We have these agencies with separate missions, and so the housing programs and these benefits and these features have kind of been in silos historically. But being that our program is the Cooperative Extension Service, and it's an educational outreach arm that is all about taking science-based information and combining it in ways to address needs and issues and to be a change force for people in the real world, we knew that we wanted to pull all of this together. So way back in history a little bit, in 2000, we developed this vision to create a center which we call La House, short for Louisiana House, to shape the future for Louisiana living, but really it's become a whole regional facility as well. It's all about the concept of sustainable housing, and it's a permanent educational exhibit now that's open to the public, and we have all these things that are associated with it, and applies well to the entire region, the southeast region. La House was created to really address, in an educational way, a number of national challenges as well as a number of our local Louisiana challenges, and you see those in red here are the ones that really relate to healthy homes and disaster resilience as well. So it permeates throughout. And what we set out to do with this was to really fuse 5 criteria in how we define sustainability, but that also translates to the benefits to the home, to the people who live there. And you can see the ones in red, again, relate to healthy homes, and so it permeates all 5 of these criteria, which we believe and we promote the idea of needing to be integrated and balanced together. Having one without the other just doesn't cut it. They need to be integrated. But to do so, with the modern knowledge that we have, and especially when you get to high efficiency, it's really important to recognize the house is a system. It's not just a box. It's a system of dynamic interacting systems, just like the human body, and anything you do to one affects other portions. So that needs to be part of that integration mix. Also, it's important to consider climate. It matters. It makes a difference. It has big implications with moisture control. And our part of the world is the hot, humid climate zones 2 and 3, pretty warm and humid. But we're also a very wet area down here, and that poses a lot of challenges. But you see, much of the country is wet also, though we may be a little wetter. And as you can see, we have a hurricane, we're vulnerable to hurricanes, as all the coastal areas of our nation and much of the population is. We also have the dubious honor of being the hub of the most destructive insect on the planet, the Formosan subterranean termite, and it can do, this is a nest, in New Orleans, and so it can do major structural damage in a year, can even destroy a structure in 2 years. So a house was built to be kind of a showcase of solutions to all of those conditions and issues and climatic factors, but not just one solution, because there isn't just one good way to tackle that. So the house essentially actually shows 4 different high-performance building systems and a lot of different components and 3 HVAC systems, 3 raised foundation systems. It demonstrates all the features. Each of those demonstrate the features of fortified for safer living, as well as healthy home and indoor air quality criteria and universal design, which we'll touch on that more. So as I mentioned, my house has 4 high-performance building systems, each wing, and then the garage is a 4th one. It's a different one, and you'll get to see just a little bit of that. It was designed by local architects to really blend all these criteria with design of the LSU campus, because it's on campus. But the first level of the house really is furnished like a home, to have a look and feel of a home, to really help the adoption process, the emotional side, and then a meeting space in the conditioned, what looks like a garage on the outside. The second level is our staff offices and a big exhibit room in actually the unvented attic. So we were, getting underway with that, and then in the year 2005, everybody knows the horror that happened, Katrina and Rita, within 3 weeks of each other. You saw the images on television. You saw how terrible and awful it was, and what, my state had to deal with. But the impact upon just one state, upon my one state, was unprecedented in the history of this country. But beyond that, think about the impact on families, what they went through. Look at these images and just try to imagine the work, the time, the cost, and the toll on their health and well-being to deal with this. That gave all new meaning and new focus to our kind of slogan and our effort in our program, to the concept of, as we shape our homes, we truly are shaping our future. It matters. It's not just about aesthetics. La House happened by chance to be in mid-construction when Katrina and Rita hit, And it had all of these fortified features, all the hurricane, the flood hardy, the elevated foundations, the termite features, already fully exposed. And so it was kind of this ready exhibit at that point, which was just, you know, almost eerie that it happened that way. We left it that way, showcased it, did open houses for 2 years, and it was really perfect for that. But then we went back and finished it in '08, and now it is a facility that's open to the public Monday through Friday. People can just drop in for self-guided tours. We have cutaways and all kinds of things, and there's a little tour map. But you see what it's about. It highlights those 5 criteria and benefits and the 3 main program objectives of resource efficient, durable, and healthy, integrated and balanced together. But these icons are on signage throughout that point out, and you can see the one of a family that points out the healthy home benefits. So I'm going to cover those kinds of features that are primarily the primary purpose and objectives, and the benefits of them are the healthy home features that are exhibited in the house. And I'll do this through touching upon each of the 8 principles of healthy housing and show some house related exhibits and components that address each of those principles throughout these criteria. First and foremost, you know, really is keep it dry in our wet, flood, hurricane-prone, hot, humid climate. And so a house incorporated this whole range of moisture control and rain control measures really to minimize water intrusion from rain, to allow it to drain down and out, and to keep it from wicking through foundations and other components. So all of these things that you see listed are all key features, because recognizing that water intrusion, you know, it's going to happen, and we try and stop it by realizing that water, you know, normally flows downward by gravity, except when it doesn't. And that happens a lot because of wind, hurricanes, because of wicking, going through materials, soil, hydrostatic pressure, adhesion, all kinds of things. So keeping all that in mind. So that's why building with good weather barrier systems is really important. We used quite a variety of them, and that means a water shedding material outside of the wood with a gap so it can actually drain. And we also sealed it to create an air barrier, and in our climate it's good for to reduce the moisture vapor transmission on the outside rather than the inside layer. You know, that complete drainage plan done right in the field, when you ride around and see houses under construction, it's really hard to find. It's rarely done right, but it's even harder to add later. And the weak link is really the detailing around windows and doors, the way all of that is integrated. So, you know, the house shows a variety. We use a variety of methods. There are wonderful products out there to do that now, and we have exhibits, you can see in the bottom right, cutaway with a fact sheet on how to install these wonderful new products to really provide that detailed protection to where the most vulnerable spots where windows tend to leak. The foundation is another huge factor in keeping it dry, because most people don't stop and think about how concrete, brick, all of this really wicks like a sponge. And so we tend to have flaws where we put a vapor barrier under the flat part, but not the grade beam. So, you know, so we do that and teach that as well. Another big issue that particularly came up after Katrina and Rita was what to do about insulating under raised floors. We adopted codes for the first time that were going to require insulation under raised floors. We had, you know, our flood elevation requirements going higher. We knew we were going to have more, but typical insulation systems cause floors to buckle and rot in our hot, humid climate. And so we were able to finally partner with the USDA Forest Products Lab and the wood industry to do a study down in New Orleans and Baton Rouge of real homes, and developed this report. In essence, what we found is that really just 2 subfloor insulation systems worked really well to maintain a stable subfloor moisture condition in raised homes, which we need for flood-prone areas. You know, around the rest of the country, all the research and the tendency is to go with the sealed, conditioned crawl space. Well, that's not a good idea in a flood zone, or to, you know, and in my opinion, any place in South Louisiana is just not a good idea with such a high water table and our termites. So one system is foil-faced isocyanurate rigid board under the entire subfloor system, under the joist, taped and sealed airtight. And the other one is closed-cell spray foam sprayed right under the subfloor. Both of these create an airtight, low permeability, integrated with insulation system that keeps that subfloor dry, and then you can have any kind of flooring you want. That's liquid water. Humidity is important as well. For health, we've all seen this chart before, or many of you I'm sure have, where the ideal from a health standpoint, indoor relative humidity is that 40 to 60% range, and actually the 40 to 50% for dust mite control. As you can see, for mold, you want to keep that relative humidity to control mold down under 70, but for people who have asthma and allergies, you want to keep it under 50%. Well, in our climate, that's indeed a challenge. So indoor humidity control is extra important for health, and it's even more challenging and important in energy efficient homes. The more energy efficient the home or the building, the smaller the margin of error for moisture control, but also you have very little need for cooling and heating, but the need for dehumidification does not get reduced. It does not change. And so that becomes difficult. So moisture control to reduce moisture generation, to exhaust it where it is created, to right size the HVAC system so it's not too big, so it runs more, to have a variable capacity or added dehumidification, and to prevent leaks in ductwork, which tends to drive it. We'll talk about that a little bit, you know, are all really important strategies. The second healthy home principle is keep it clean. And La House illustrates that with easy care, cleanable, smooth surfaces that are easy to clean and keep free of dust mites and other contaminants. We also include the Japanese concept of shoe cubbies at the family entry, so you can put all your dirty stuff there and not track the lead-laden soil all across the house, and a lot of mold and moisture resistant materials as well. The third principle is keep it well ventilated. This is key. And there are 3 components to proper ventilation. You know, in the colder parts of the country, you're thinking about, well, you know, you need ventilation so you don't have, you know, combustion gas buildup, but that's not so much our issue. Proper ventilation really is about having good local exhaust that works at the source of a pollutant, having some clean, fresh air that comes into the home to dilute indoor contaminants, things that off gas, and to properly distribute and control the airflow so that you minimize humidity problems, big issue for us, and energy loss at the same time. So for us, and really most of the country, the best practice is to build tight and vent right, but you can do that a little differently whether it's a cold climate or a hot climate. And this kind of illustrates best practice Southern style, which, you know, I'll touch on. First and foremost is having effective exhaust, spot exhaust, where you generate a lot of moisture and where you generate pollutants, of course, you know, over the kitchen cooktop and bathrooms and laundry as well. And if the fans are not quiet, people won't use them. So quiet fans. But the real limiting factor for many is really often the case, lousy installation of the ductwork with S-curves and U-turns and flex duct. That will reduce the airflow greatly. And so proper installation of quiet, powerful exhaust fans is important. And in our climate, supply fresh air, not exhaust air, is the way to get that fresh air ventilation. And that gives you control. You can control the amount with a damper control, flow control system, filter it, know the source, where it's come from. That is the best way to bring in just the right amount of fresh air without moisture loading with too much humidity. But when doing so, particularly in the shoulder seasons when you don't need either heating or air, sometimes at a highly energy efficient home that's not enough, and supplemental dehumidification may be needed. La House has 4 different types and levels of dehumidifiers, from a low cost $120 model to a $2,000 ventilating dehumidifier, which is what's actually used here, to show the range of solutions that fit the need. Number 4, healthy home principle number 4 is to keep it safe, and that's where we bring in and illustrate universal design. Universal design is not just about ADA for people who use wheelchairs. It's about design for life, for all ages and stages of life, from babies and toddlers, having it safe for them, and that includes lead safety, to people who use wheelchairs or walkers or have arthritis or vision issues. So all throughout the first level of the house, and then we have sort of elevator closets where you could have elevators in the future. But we have a lot of universal design features, the clearances, a ramped entrance, knee space, and accessible, accessibility to where whether you're standing or sitting, see well or not, whether you're a little child or an elderly person, you can function and be comfortable and safe in this situation, in this home. Principle number 5 is keep it free of contaminants. That means good indoor air quality, good indoor environmental quality. La House has no combustion inside the building envelope unless other than direct vent sealed combustion. We have a fireplace because people want that, but it's a direct vent sealed combustion, a closed loop. It does not use indoor air to fuel the fire, and there's no chance of backdrafting. Everything else is either outside the building envelope, any gas equipment, the gas tankless water heater, a gas backup furnace, and nothing else is inside. So no combustion indoors within the building envelope. Effective quiet exhaust, mold-resistant materials. Another feature, particularly for any place where there's any air conditioning for more than a couple of weeks out of the year, there should be no vinyl wallpaper on interior walls because that's a risk of growing mold behind it. We do use mold and moisture-resistant materials, low VOC paints and other products, smooth, washable furnishings and floorings, the shoe cubbies, dust controls. And we have reclaimed furniture, but it's all lead-free. And then, of course, flood and radon-resistant raised foundations to deal with keeping it free of contaminants. The 6th principle is keep it pest-free, and so La House illustrates a variety of integrated pest management methods, both for, wood-destroying insects as well as just normal bug infestations. And tight construction, which is good for energy efficiency and moisture control, is also helpful to keep the bugs out. So these gaskets around penetrations and tight air sealing, as well as we favored using a lot of borate treated products and borate acid-based pesticides because they're very low toxicity and benign to people, pets, and the environment. So that is, and then barriers, along the way, moisture control. The 7th principle is keep it well maintained, and that's where our major criteria and benefit of durability comes in, both in terms of just durable construction and materials, but in terms of hazard resistance, flood, wind in particular, and also fire. Again, moisture control is key for durability, otherwise you end up with decay and degradation there. We've already touched on this, so I won't, go through it again, but just to mention it. And then the next big item is flood resistance. We are a very flood prone area and state, as you know, and that is our most common disaster that affects the most people here as well as throughout the nation. And so La House illustrates, 3 elevated foundation systems, a concept, and also the concepts of dry flood proofing and wet flood proofing. Dry flood proofing is trying to keep the water out by sealing it and having closures. Wet flood proofing is the concept of the water would come in but do very little damage, so you just clean and not have to gut and replace everything. The raised foundation systems for flood zones, we show the slab cap over a filled stem wall, very robust but kind of expensive, as well as the open pier and beam, the more traditional, and the stem wall with flood vents within a foot of grade as required by the flood insurance program. We also show the concept of wet flood proofing, but I rarely use that term. I generally call it flood hardy. And what that means is, and this is particularly useful, I think, or particularly valuable where in areas where it's kind of an uncertain flood risk. You know, the flood maps are based on a 1% chance in that 1 year, and you can certainly get floods beyond that. You know, the area where I am, we just had the worst flooding in our history in this area of the state last year, the historic Great Flood of 2016 in Louisiana, and about 70% of all the homes that flooded were outside of the flood map risk zone, and because this was a historic flood that exceeded that. And so, but particularly in areas where your flood zone is dependent upon levees and pumps like New Orleans, you know, to me, that's not a good bet, you know, to be above that. So the flood hardy building systems are concepts that create a building assembly that is below the potential flood risk, not just the flood map risk, that can be drained, flushed out, ventilated, dried, cleaned, and just restored and put back into place without having to gut and replace and wait for contractors and wait for materials and get rooked by, you know, shady ones who just inflate their prices or steal the money and leave. I've heard so many horror stories of people who were taken by unscrupulous bad guys out there pretending to be contractors. And few of them really get caught and go to jail. So it's an awful situation, you know. And when you don't have flood insurance because you weren't in a flood zone, it really compounds it. So this concept here you can see on the left is a model that we exhibit here at La House, and the illustration at the bottom shows its layers. It's the concept of no insulation really within the cavity. All the insulation is closed cell rigid foam to the outside, and everything is then drainable with a paperless fiberglass mat drywall with gaps between the panels, covered up with trim. After a flood, you remove the trim, you flush out the silt, you ventilate, dehumidify, you know, clean and dry, put back the trim, repaint, and you're done. You know, don't really have to replace anything except outlets, you know, electrical stuff that got wet with salt water. So we also have an exhibit, a couple of exhibits that show retrofittable flood hardy assemblies. So if you have an existing home where you can't do that new construction assembly with the rigid foam on the outside, you can use closed cell spray foam, and you can see it in that illustration, a partial fill of the cavity. So instead of going back again with fiberglass, go back with closed cell fill, partial fill, and then use removable wainscoting. You see in a little bathroom is what's there. That's plywood wainscoting painted with trim, or go back with the paperless drywall with the gaps, and then again the drainable, flushable, dryable, cleanable, you know, dryable building assembly that could stay in place. The teaching center, our garage, which we call our teaching center, is a insulating concrete form building system that is flood hardy in itself, but it also had waterproofing put in the bottom 3 feet, and if we had flood enclosures, which we don't really for the doors, that could be an example of dry flood proofing, which is approved for commercial structures by the flood insurance program, but not for residential. But some people may choose to want to do that. Besides flood, hurricane resistance, is important for durability in the hurricane zones or any high wind zones. And studies have shown that, this sequence are the major building envelope issues. The major damage and losses on property insurance were in this order. So top of the list are the roof loss, roof damages that allow water to come through. Broken windows that allow the wind in and cause structural damage to the structure. So loss of creating big holes in the building envelope is what puts the structure at risk. So flying debris, window and door anchorage, garage doors, sliding glass doors. And then comes water leakage through these openings, and finally the ridge vents and gable vents and the soffits that blow out. So those are the major issues. When there is a high wind event like a hurricane or a tornado, we build houses to hold up their weight, but what it's really like is turning the house upside down and shaking it. Where is it going to come apart? That is the weak link. And so wind resistance was incorporated throughout these 4 building systems to go to a higher level for the fortified program up to about 130 miles per hour, which is beyond, what's a code requirement here. But in doing that, good aerodynamic roof designs, hip roofs with moderate slopes, high performance wind-tested roofing and underlayments, full structural sheathing to prevent the leaning, the racking, nails with good pull-out resistance, and window protections from flying debris, stronger garage doors and connections. First of all, with that roof is secondary water barriers. Yes, the wind-tested roofing, but if you do lose some shingles, keep the water out. So high-performance underlayments and taping the seams. House utilize extra strong connections, mechanical connections, and hurricane clips. Strong soffits actually fastened, not just hung, so that they stay in place. And of course, the metal hardware, the connections, the connectors that tying every component of the framing together from the roof all the way down to the foundation. We show about 7 or 8 different kinds of protections from windborne debris, many of them retrofittable as hurricane shutters or screens or fabrics or removable panels that are much easier, lighter weight, and more convenient alternative and easier to store alternative to boarding up with plywood or OSB. The garage door is often the most vulnerable opening in a typical home, especially an attached garage, and that's where major structural damage is rooted. And so this shows a reinforced garage door. And we also have some extras like taking the master bedroom closet and it, creating a hurricane shelter that is built with normal materials, normal hardware, normal skills, but to a higher level of wind and impact resistance than you could afford to do with the rest of the house. Now, this is not a FEMA qualified tornado safe room that could withstand a EF5 tornado, but it would certainly be a safer place to ride out a hurricane, and would be safer than anything else in a low level or the fringe area of a tornado. But at an affordable level, because actually safe rooms are very, very expensive. And then getting back to restoring resilient and healthy homes. So La House does include a variety of examples and exhibits of what people can do with their current homes, particularly after it's been damaged by a storm. As I mentioned before, we have a couple of exhibits of the flood-hardy wall, the drainable, dryable with closed cell foam, but we also had the opportunity to create a mobile exhibit that we call La House Mobile. It was actually built by students. Senior engineering students had to do a senior design project and that we worked with, and so this kind of goes on the road, and it shows a lot of retrofit solutions. as well as the flood hardy wall. It also shows how you can remove siding and add some hurricane straps. Not ideal, but better than nothing. It also has the wind-tested and rated roofing shingles with a high-performance underlayment, and and taped seams of the roof decking with the ring-shank nails. Some other things that we illustrate are the removable storm panels, floorings that are resilient. Instead of going back with carpet and more floorings, and laminate and other things that would have to be tossed after a second flood, go back with flood hardy floorings. And we show, glue down tile on slab or composite, limestone vinyl composite. On the top right, these are vinyl tiles that are interlocking like a jigsaw puzzle. They're not glued. So they could be picked up after a flood, cleaned, let the slab dry, and put them back, and everything fine. And then the concept of trying to rise above the flood as much as you can. If you can't elevate the whole house, if you can, great, and here's how to insulate under the floor. But if you can't, elevate what you can. Elevate the air conditioning compressor, the tankless water heater up on a wall outside, front load washer and dryer, energy efficient, water efficient, and up on a pedestal might be above a low level flood. Termite controls are part of durability, a big issue for us because it can make the home not only structurally unsound, but much more vulnerable to hurricane and wind damage as well. So all of these components I mentioned before, multiple layers of defense against the termite are what we promote beyond just the minimum code requirement of soil treatment. That doesn't cut it. It is not infallible, and it only lasts 15 years. So along with good building practices of moisture control, we advocate using a lot of borate treated structural materials and barriers as well. The eighth principle of healthy homes is keep it comfortable. Actually, it's keep it thermally controlled, but nobody knows what that means, so I like to use the term keep it comfortable, because basically keeping it cool enough or warm enough in winter and cool enough in summer to be safe and healthy for anyone. But in doing so, a good way to do that is with energy efficiency, so that you can afford to keep it comfortable. But that also needs to be done in conjunction with number 5, keep it free of contaminants. You don't want to create an indoor air quality problem by inappropriate or by weatherization improvements that create issues. So back to keep it comfortable with energy efficiency that actually performs, and it actually pays so that people get a financial benefit as well as the health and safety and comfort benefit. It's not just about insulation, and particularly in this climate, that's just one piece of what's needed. It's about addressing all of these factors to create a total package of comfortable, healthy energy efficiency. And so energy efficient design and construction in the Deep South and the Southeast really is all about these 3 things. Airtight, so you're not leaking your conditioned air in and out and bringing that hot, humid air in. It's about the continuity of the insulation, not so much a huge amount of thickness or R value, but having it without gaps and voids, because that's what typically happens. And then for us, sun control is the big deal, because the biggest part of our conditioning, of our energy bill, is air conditioning. And almost everyone has air conditioning, because if you don't, it's really oppressive down here. So reducing heat gain is important. The typical home has tons of leakage points, and the biggest leaks tend to be in that ceiling, what I call Swiss cheese ceilings we tend to have. And it exchanges air with the attic, that hot, dirty attic, so that is not healthy. So addressing those is key. La House, as I indicated before, has 4 different high-performance building systems that are energy efficient, and each of them reinforced for durability and hazard resistance and health as well. The living room is 2x4 framing, kind of standard practice, but enhanced for added performance, for higher performance and more resource efficient use of products for moisture control, for energy efficiency, and for hazard resistance. The 2-story west wing is advanced framing that's optimum value engineered. We use bigger studs, 2x6s spaced further apart, 24 inches, so you can get more insulation in that wall cavity, and it's kind of a stack framing. You can put ductwork through those open web joists between the floors, keep it within, you know, the building envelope. So lots of advantages to doing that for about the same cost, or less actually. The framing details are a little bit different, but not hard to do to allow insulation where it's often missing in standard construction, the corners, the window headers. The third building system of our east wing is structural insulated panels. These are factory-made panels, which is insulation sandwiched between oriented strand board panels on both sides. So it's structure and insulation 1, goes up really fast, and provides total continuity of insulation and inherently a very airtight building envelope without a lot of need for special workmanship and attention to detail to achieve that. Those same benefits can come from insulating concrete form. Our garage or teaching center is built with that, a very low waste system. Also very strong, very resilient from a hazard standpoint, but kind of expensive. And so it's sort of at the high end of our continuum of performance benefits and price as well. Throughout the frame systems, having strategically selected effective insulation systems that provide that full continuity of coverage and help to facilitate the air tightness, the tight construction that we seek. And we favored the borate treated cellulose as insulation where we didn't need the spray foam, so we kind of tended to use those two in strategic areas because of all of the, you know, the benefits associated with them. We talked about stopping that solar heat gain is a big part of, and this is especially important for people who cannot afford any air conditioning, but even those who do, trying to reduce that heat gain is important. So a house, you know, incorporates what I call southern passive solar. Instead of passive solar concepts to gain heat in winter, we do it more to reduce heat gain year-round, and particularly in summer. So, you know, that orientation to have most of your exposure and your glass on the south and the north, very little on the east and west. We employ a variety of cool roof strategies. The metal roofing, though it looks like a dark brown, is actually a special pigment that is an Energy Star rated roofing because it has the solar reflectance of a light color even though it's a dark color. And then elevated tiles on battens provide a ventilated roof, and in our vented roofs we have radiant barriers to reduce the radiant heat gain into the attic. Radiant barriers were used behind, you know, in the vented roof systems as well as in the sheathing systems. They're perforated there behind where we have brick veneer to kind of block some of that heat gain from the hot brick in summer. Windows or glass is really important. Low solar heat gain is what really matters most to us. And so these Energy Star, you know, low E, heat reflective windows. We have all the different framing materials, 10 different types, and the tubular skylights instead of regular skylights. We also have exhibits that talk about sun control improvements you can make to existing homes, the do-it-yourself radiant barrier installations, solar film on windows. We have a little display that shows, you know, how effective it is by how fast those little things turn from a heat lamp. And then the sun control strategies, the solar screening, very inexpensive, do-it-yourself option suitable for even low-income homeowners or renters to do as well to reduce the heat gain. HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And we expect a lot from our HVAC systems. We are spoiled Americans and want to be comfortable, but we also expect to have good indoor air quality for the health benefit associated with that. And we know that we're in that industry. That means good humidity control, as well as some fresh air to dilute pollutants. So how do you achieve that? Well, here are the Energy Star efficiency ratings if someone is going to replace equipment that we certainly recommend, but you don't want to necessarily take it way beyond that, because it can happen that sometimes people going for super high efficiency sacrifice humidity control. Some of the high SEER equipment actually does a really poor job of dehumidification. That's how it achieves that high efficiency. So it's really important to be alert to that and to make sure that you get a system that has enough dehumidification capacity for the need, or to supplement it with either variable capacity or a separate dehumidifier. Oversizing works against us, though people don't realize that. They think bigger is better, but that's not the case when it comes to air conditioning. Right-sized is best. And the rule of thumb is not what should be done. You know, people should actually get a load calculation and a really good determination to right-size. La House exhibits 3 different types of HVAC systems for warm, humid climates. Of course, they're all Energy Star and right-sized, and you know, it exhibits a variety of things. And in the house itself, we try to keep them all within the conditioned space. So the high end of the continuum is a geothermal heat pump. That's an all-electric system. It also provides preheating to an electric water heater. That's in an unvented conditioned attic, so you know, there's no combustion there. And this is the most expensive, but also the most energy efficient, because it's a renewable system where it exchanges heat underground in a closed loop circulation of water in a pipe in some deep wells. We also exhibit a dual fuel heat pump, an air source heat pump with a moderately high efficiency, but where the backup heat, instead of being electric strip, which is inefficient, is a high efficiency gas furnace up in the attic. But the details that go with it, the large return, the air conditioning unit, elevated on a pedestal to be out of flood harm, those features are illustrated as well. The teaching center has something a little more innovative. It's a small space with a small heating load. And so instead of having, a furnace or something like that, we show a tankless gas water heater, which is mid-efficiency, heats the water, also heats the air through a heat exchanger. So you get more bang for the buck of that piece of equipment. This is what people tend to have. They have spider ducts, just like you don't like spiders, we really shouldn't like these things either. Not a good idea from an energy efficiency standpoint. And the more ductwork, the less efficient the flow, and the more opportunities for leaks as well. Here's the deal for us. We tend to have air conditioning systems and ductwork in these attics. And the ducts are not well sealed. They leak like crazy. Studies have shown an average of 30% energy loss through them. But it's not just the energy. Is that when you're pulling air out of the house by your air conditioning system and then it leaks through the ducts in the attic, that's like taking air out of your home, with a fan and pushing it outside. Well, that creates a suction, just like when you suck on a straw, it's a negative pressure. So it's causing the house to suck in hot, humid air from outside every time that unit kicks on. And it comes through nooks and crannies and can condense on cool surfaces and grow mold. Not a good thing. Then it's even worse when we shut a door. Because when we shut a door, then we tend to have just one return in a hallway, and the air going into those shut rooms, those bedrooms, cannot get back to it. So they are pressurized, leaking out. The common air of the house goes super negative, sucking really hard, usually from the attic, the dirtiest, hottest air there is. So the house demonstrates 4 ways to keep all that ductwork and the air conditioning system within the airtight thermal envelope, the insulation and air barrier boundary of the living space. And that can cut energy loss, 20 to 50%, but it can also improve air quality by preventing the sucking in through, nooks and crannies and causing hidden condensation and moisture problems. So we have fur downs in hallways, going between open webs, between floors. We have embedded and spray foam under a ceiling deck, an attic deck, and then we have the unvented semi-conditioned attic where the thermal boundaries at the roof instead of the ceiling. That is kind of the easiest solution in new construction. It can be retrofitted, but we usually don't recommend that because it has to be done right. If it's not done right, there can be real moisture problems and air quality problems. So, we don't have time to go into all the details, but you can see, it has many advantages, but it also must be done properly to avoid moisture problems and air quality problems. In the teaching center, we do have the ductwork and the air conditioning system in the attic. It's a cool roof system, but we also show how it can be done properly with mastic sealed tight ductwork and extra insulation, the R8 insulation on it, and a good distribution system. We advocate, we do training programs on, to train professionals to do duct leak testing and blower door testing, and we advocate to people, get it measured, otherwise you don't know. They just look at it and say, oh, it looks fine, don't use that contractor. And mastic is really the best solution to seal with. The return air grills solve the issue of when you close doors to let the air come through. These that we exhibit here have sound and light baffles to retain some privacy. Part of energy efficiency is having efficient appliances. They use less energy, so you can afford your energy bills. You can afford to air condition or heat your home, and they also give off less heat. And that's particularly true with energy efficient lighting. So a house shows a wide variety of fluorescent, CFL, LED, airtight insulation contact, recessed cans, Energy Star ceiling fans and exhaust fans and with lights and so forth. Because not only do these more efficient fixtures use less, 75% less energy, they give off 75% less heat. So that's part of reducing the heat gain that we're talking about in our hot climate. The house also gets into water waste and eco-friendly, and that helps to protect the environment, which has health implications, and our water supply as well. Those 3 objectives of resource efficient, durable, and healthy also need to be balanced with what's convenient and practical. That means cost effective, marketable, low maintenance, family friendly. Otherwise, we won't make much headway. We won't go mainstream. So these were part of the criteria and the benefits. Taking it just a little bit further, a house has sort of displays and exhibits and signage that shows, the interior finishes as well as durable, healthy interior finishes. You can see examples of the signage. The little QR code shows people can scan it and see little tour guides. Basically, Claudette sort of talking about these features. We favor durable, easy care, universal design type features and floorings and clearances and grab bars and adjustable shower heads and curbless showers and knee space to be safe and usable throughout the life cycle. Durable, easy care, and universal features, particularly the kitchens and the bathrooms, in particular. And one of the bathrooms has, small bathroom with normal size tub with a cantilevered seat for easy transfer, built-in grab bars. So some of these things are available without having the big opulent space. Natural, comfortable, healthy floorings. We show kind of a wide variety of options out there, and some that meeting sort of the green home criteria. And then some special purpose floorings like the flood hardy, kind of warm underfoot, but also, the limestone vinyl composites, the screen porch, which has a passive solar concept, and the interlocking tile in the garage, which could be used in homes, great for flood-prone areas too. All of this is about education, and even though, the biggest changes in raising the bar of high-performance, durable, resilient, and healthy homes comes with, adopting codes, we really believe that consumer education is the bottom line key to change the demand profile, to build demand for resilient and healthy homes. Just like now the market demands granite, solid surface countertops. Let's try to create that same kind of market demand to change the norm for resilience and for healthy homes. And as such, we provide we try to create a variety of both print and online consumer guides that are available here, but also, on our website. This is the homepage to our La House Resource Center website. You can see it has sort of 3 portals. One that takes you to more about La House. You can see construction pictures and, find out about it. The middle one, My House, My Home, is a portal for consumers to our tons of information, lots and lots of articles on all these topics. And then the one on the right is for housing professionals, which takes them to the more technical stuff and, and some of the same things, but also some of our training offerings that we have for them. After the August floods last year, the great floods of 2016, in my area, we put together a special icon on that homepage that we call our flood recovery section, and it provides a quick, easy way, because the Ag Center website, the LSU Ag Center website is huge and sometimes it's hard to find stuff. And so this created an easy pathway to find some of our key materials. Storm damage cleanup highlight, that's a new piece that I really wrote as the flood was happening last year. It's kind of what I did, and then our wet flood proofing, and then a portal to our disaster information from prior years, a wealth of information. And then something else that's kind of new that I did is after this flood, my phone and email were on fire, and I heard so many questions and calls, and that was kind of the inspiration to develop this extensive list of FAQs, frequently asked questions after the flood, for the type of housing construction we have in this area, which is different from New Orleans, and what to do after gutting the flooded home. It was really interesting. In years past, we really had to press people to open up their walls and to pull out that wet insulation. This time, it's just the opposite. Everybody did it. They threw everything out, and then what do I do now? And so, and then what do you do where you have brick veneer and no one has the money to take it off? So that was a huge issue. So these FAQs are not a printed piece. It is really just online. But what it does, it takes these common questions I heard, and I have science-based answers that give people options and considerations. Nothing is a perfect recommendation or solution, but to help them make informed, better informed choices and decisions about how to restore their flooded home from this awful, awful disaster, especially for those people who have no flood insurance and no money to do so. We also have quite a bit on our La House YouTube channel. It's My La House is the the term to use in YouTube, and that includes a variety of videos, including the ones that I was involved, that I helped HUD, the HUD videos on safe do-it-yourself mold removal, restoring a flood-damaged home, restoring a flooded home, that HUD developed, that you know, you can see my picture that I helped narrate, and returning to your flood-damaged home. But it also includes videos about, you know, the building systems at La House, and slide presentations that have been narrated to turn them into videos on resilient home improvements, on storm-ready roofing, on healthy home improvements, and on the wash and warehouse new construction concept. I was also honored to be involved with the updating and expansion of HUD's Rebuild Healthy Homes guidebook. It is an extensive, comprehensive how-to guide written for homeowners and volunteers, but it's expanded to cover the types of damages that occur for all types of disasters, not just floods and not just the type of housing in New Orleans like the original edition focused upon. And it includes a section on when you're restoring, features that are recommended, and components to actually get a silver lining out of this tragic disaster, and to restore your home for more than before, to make it healthier, to make it more resilient, and to make it more energy efficient. It's available as a free online PDF and a free mobile app from the app stores. Additional sources of information, if you want to take it even further for resilience, you know, is disastersafety.org is the home of Fortified for Safer Living. They have a program for new construction, but also for existing homes, that some insurance companies will provide discounts for meeting that certification. Flash.org has a wealth of information, videos, tip sheets, as well as building guides and home improvement guides. So it's a wonderful resource on strengthening homes and safeguarding families. On the building science side, you know, a huge part of what's exhibited at La House, really, we learned from Building Science Corporation. They are kind of a research firm that has worked with the Department of Energy a great deal, and they have building guides for every climate zone, and lots of information that is free in a searchable database. So this has been a great resource. And then the Department of Energy's Building America Solutions Center is a wonderful website that's very user-friendly to find. It's targeting the housing professional, the builders, the contractors, but it's really very user-friendly, I think, for just about anybody to get some guidance and illustrations and how-tos to do things. And it particularly addresses these moisture, energy, integration issues. La House, you know, wouldn't have been possible without the technical assistance and, of course, the financial and in-kind support of hundreds of supporters and donors. And so this slide just recognizes, you know, the key ones that we tapped to create it. I want to thank you all very much for being here and your time today, and the little quickie tour I gave you of building solution fusion and how we exhibit that and help to educate people about it, the blending of the benefits that people need through La House Resource Center. It's not just about healthy homes. It's healthy homes integrated with durability, resilience, and efficiency. So at this point, I am...
Everybody still there? Yeah, I'm sorry. I hit the wrong button. I muted everybody, including yourself. So sorry about that. So everybody is now unmuted, and we welcome your questions. You're also welcome to use the chat window. Claudette, that was a fantastic presentation, a lot of good information. Before we get questions, I just want to mention that if you have a chance and you're in the Baton Rouge area, please do stop by La House. It is a fantastic demonstration project. I wish we had them all over the country, but this is probably the premier demonstration house in the country for a lot of these strategies, especially for the Southeast United States. So again, we'll open up for questions. Please feel free to ask any questions you have. Okay, well, Claudette, thank you so much for this presentation. I want to remind everybody it is recorded. We will be posting it on the National Healthy Homes Partnership website and also the HUD.gov Healthy Homes website. So, Claudette, thank you very much.
Thank you.